Yeah, so we're going to start with the Irish Times this Monday morning here. So that's a picture of Matty Donnelly, I think it is, who is being strangled by Peter Hart, this time in joy as opposed to the normal pictures that you see Tyrone footballers strangling people. So that's then post-match. Tyrone make final chapter is the Keith Duggan story. Regeneration game, Gavin's genius is to keep refreshing Dublin. This is the point that has most people terrified about, it's cyclical, don't worry. This amazing team of great footballers, like, we'll never see the likes of Bernard Brogan and Paul Flynn and Diarmuid Connolly again. And you're like, we won't. We're going to see Brian Fenton and Brian Howard. Yeah. Like, this is Brian Howard's first season. Howard has a jink. Like, he kind of came into the team as a halfback, sort of like he's going to be one of those hard-working half-forwards. But no, he's not. He's going to be like a Maradona-style creative player who will...
He's been seriously impressive. He's in line for an All-Star at this stage.
He's got one banked at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Unbelievably impressive. Yes.
What position? The half-forward line? Is that automatically?
That's actually great for the All-Star committee because they can put him wherever the hell they want, and they can just allow somebody else to get an award. So probably half-back.
It wouldn't be ridiculous to say that he's played a bit of football at half-back. Like, anyway, or midfield.
He looked. The camera switched him at the end of the game, and it honestly looked like it hadn't taken a bit out of him.
Yeah.
He's that type of. He looks to me like that type of an individual, but he is with himself and Scully. Like, I mean, that is two awesome finds because even actually, if you watch them, they're so tuned in with how he wants to play. You know, there's no wasting of ball. There's no pot shots. There's no outside of the right boot. You know, there's none of this thing. Everything is percentages. I saw someone saying the other day, I think their efficiency rate, what did they score first half? 1-7, 1-8 or something like this, maybe 1-9. I think so. It was 10 scores. I think they had 11 chances. But all of them, which they never do, they don't even consider taking the shot unless it's in the scoring zone and they have someone who, so in other words, I'm coming onto it with my right foot in the scoring zone. I'm not even, if I'm coming onto it with my left foot, which isn't as effective, I'm generally looking to slip it to someone else.
Yeah.
Like Mannion got a score yesterday. That was phenomenal. He started the ball out under the Cusick stand side, pinged a beautiful pass across, and if you track him, he ran about 30-odd minutes into the game. He came across, sprinted into the space. The ball basically went from right into the middle, out to the left. Someone found him with a hand pass. He pretended to jink inside to McCaffrey and he stuck it over his left foot. But it was all just the movement around it.
Yeah. Mannion's one of the few players who it seems is given licence to go one-on-one against somebody if he sees it to be on. Actually, maybe...
I think that was specific to Galway. It was Declan Kine marking him, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was the first score.
Yeah, I think the general theory this year has been whoever Declan Kine is marking, you have licence to go one-on-one because he's a brilliant footballer, brilliant with the ball in hand, but he is viewed as the weak link when it comes to a man-marking job in that Galway backline. Certainly that's what that's certainly been a common theory around approaching Galway this year, is you get your best one-on-one player on Declan Kine and you try and roast him basically. And I was actually surprised because that happens in minute 1 under the Cusick stand as well, where Mannion destroys him, and it's like, this could be a long afternoon for Kine or a long evening, and it didn't actually turn out to be that bad in hindsight because it was spread out so in so many other places.
You know, the whole notion that Dublin are allowed to play free-flowing football, that's programmed. That's you're not allowed to shoot if you're in the wrong area, which is completely taking the whole notion of them being street footballers.
Absolutely.
And making it's complete bollocks, basically.
Yeah. Well, no, it was true. Like 2013, like that. This is the reason why we have this, is because there were street footballers who got outwitted in 2014, and that is the evolution of this team.
Yes.
And
correct.
I think as a result of that, I think there is no question that the peak Brogan and peak Connolly era helped Dublin as a group of individuals to be at their best. But as a team, they're at their most unbeatable now. Like that 2013 team might be a better team, but it was far more beatable than this Dublin team.
I would like to see a proper rankings of which year's team is the best team.
Well, we'll do it at some point this week.
Yeah, because you probably look at it from a supporter's point of view. And I you know what, maybe, we can go to the attendances, and talk about the attendances in the two semi-finals. People say, no, people are on holidays. But there's enough people in Dublin to fill Croke Park, and there's enough supporters in Dublin, as we've seen, to fill Leinster games on a, June bank holiday, but in the past, not anymore. I've chatted to a couple of Dublin supporters who would say, well, the team it's kind of programmed, exactly to use your word. It's not, they don't really kind of see that kind of major flair. Now, of course, it's still impressive and it's still, but Like, I remember after the Donegal debacle, I remember chatting to Paddy Andrews, and he said, listen, the one thing that we're going to ensure is that we never get caught again like that. So their whole idea of being patient with the ball, not getting caught with these long kickouts, not being caught. If you remember that game, I remember being at that game, and they just couldn't break them down, and then they were trying pot shots from everywhere, and there were wrong fellas on the ball and lads shooting from underneath the stand. That does not happen now.
No. I wonder, because this year has certainly been the most mechanical of the Jim Gavin years. What would Diarmuid Connolly feel playing in this team? Would he be like, this is kind of boring, we're very, very successful, and I'm probably kicking 4 or 5 points a game, but this is kind of boring. The ball hasn't touched the outside of my right boot all game.
That's the thing. He would just drop deep and ping those 60-yard passes. And
True.
So then the Irish Independent final fling is the background there, and that is the Tyrone sub-goalkeeper celebrating with Colin Kavanagh, who I presume was man of the match. Somebody said it.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, okay. And then Rhys McClanahan won gold in the European Gymnastics last night, so there's a picture of him at the bottom of that there. Cyril Farrell is beginning the countdown to the All-Ireland hurling final, which is, it seems like it's coming around pretty quick here. That maybe this whole condensed season is great, but then it needs to slow down a little bit at the end. Maybe an extra week wouldn't be a disaster. And then Dan McDonnell and why the new season will tell the same old story. The top 6 are set in stone there. But there's the point there, Eamon Sweeney. That's the lead column in the Irish Independent today, is that the falling attendances are an issue, and he's saying it's because people are bored, that it's nothing to do with the fact that they're on holidays. And at what point do we decide that Dublin needs to be split, and that, let them do 7 in a row, and then you can go, okay, fair enough, lads. Now maybe we have a split, and I mean, how exciting would it be to see North versus South?
Yeah, I don't think the split is the answer. It isn't. I think okay, you take out Galway. Galway probably should have been bet by 10, 11, 12 in the end up. Barred the fortuitous goal at the end. Did it feel like that kind of a beating? What will they potentially win the final by? Is it that the chasm is still ever growing, or the question that people need to ask is are teams actually getting a little bit closer to them? Like, are they being tested a bit more? Okay, people saying harking back to Mayo. I still think it's incumbent on everyone else to raise the game. You can't just do it. It is still incumbent, and I'm still maybe I'm hoping against hope here. I'm sorry, Stephen, but Cluxton is still massively important to that. And I know you might say, well, the next guy comes in, but there are just certain players that they cannot do it out, and he is still ever present in that team. And you can see even from the weekend, probably the 4 best, well, certainly the 3 best goalkeepers in the country were on 3 of the last 4 teams.
Yeah.
Beggin's kickouts are absolutely
sensational.
Just, he hits. He literally starts an attack.
I'm thinking, could Beggin actually, could he be a full-time sweeper? Just get somebody whose job it is to stop shots. Is he that good a footballer? And
I think it's going there.
Is his distribution so amazing that actually not having him outfield and on the ball in the half-back line, just kicking quarterback in the whole game? Is it possible?
Well, I was thinking that. I was just kind of like, you look at Beggin just as kind of the gate of a man that he is, and a lot of goalkeepers these days have kind of followed the trend of the Premier League where you have to be 6 foot something at least to actually get that position in the first place. So why, taking that logic a step further, why aren't goalkeepers going up for the opposition kickouts? Give you one extra big man in the middle of the pitch and just let your 5'8" cornerback stand in goal for a couple of seconds while you actually go up and try and break that ball. I mean, if you actually want to put the pressure on the opposition, it's like, I've never seen it done. It probably will never happen, but it's you could take that step further.
I think it is going to happen. Like, I remember chatting to Kieran McGuinness a couple of years ago. Remember McGuinness tried this? Remember he tried to fly goalkeeper about 2 or 3 seasons ago, and he was absolutely castigated. People were like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
Because he didn't necessarily have a goalkeeper in goals. I think he played an outfielder in goals as well, and he came out. And now it's kind of become like, oh, actually, that's a kind of an idea now.
Accidentally happened in a few games, as if Mariette happened accidentally, because obviously, clearly, intercounty teams have been thinking, well, how do we add an extra man? There's 3 against 3 here. What do we do? Well, the goalkeeper's free. Beggin's good enough to do it.
Correct.
Let's see what he's doing.
Yeah.
But the distribution is sensational.
The distribution is phenomenal. And as you say, he can cut out. Like, if he gives a ball, gets it back, and he's standing on 25, 30 metres out, and he's an ability to kick that 45, 50 metres, he has now launched that ball way over all of that cover, and he has put it into an area where it's kind of like we were chatting last week about the hurling. The ability of how many scores in the hurling. Well, the fellas can now poke the ball 70, 80 metres, no problem. So it's from here to there into the danger area in a second, and he has that ability. Instead of this, we're going across the field, we're trying to inch our way up the pitch. His vision, boom,
corner forward is free in there. It's a one-on-one. Let's go. We're going to give him a chance.
Yeah, like I do wonder. Like I think we've taken the idea of Mayo versus Dublin as kind of the one-size-fits-all rule against a good goalkeeper, as in you push up onto the kickouts and that's it. That is clearly the way to beat Dublin, but that is not necessarily the way to beat Monaghan. I think when Tyrone actually set off yesterday and didn't allow Beggan to go over the top and allowed him to have the short kick out, it worked well.
Yeah.
And Dublin did it to Galway as well. One thing I noticed, I'm not sure, was this a plan or was it kind of those few moments that I was actually really concentrating on the game on Saturday, but it seemed that Dublin were content to let Rory Lavelle go short to his right, because that was Jack McCaffrey's wing, and they were like, if we get a turnover on that wing after they have possession there, then McCaffrey's in and Galway are doomed. And it was the first time it might not have been a plan, it might have just been coincidental that these were the few moments that I saw where they just allowed them to have it on one specific wing because their best attacking threat was coming from deep there. So turnover would have been devastating.
What they try to do there is, I think what they try to do there is that they try to basically, it's and I wouldn't say, I'd say Jason Sherlock is massively involved here. It's kind of a trap thing which they do in basketball, where you allow the ball go out to a certain person, and if you watch, what Dublin will do is they'll chase you from behind. So this man chases you from behind, in other words, that he stops you coming back and putting the ball back into the goalkeeper. So as he chases you from behind, everyone else squeezes across, and the idea is that we basically don't get the ball off this guy particularly, but as he passes to the next person, you're in on him, and then you break. And then if you watch, McCaffrey has done it. They've done it a number of times. They do it actually out the pitch. So they use the sideline as an extra defender. So when you're out there, obviously you can't go out over sideline. So you panic or you try to come back infield, and then they get you. They have literally, it's all structured moves. Yeah,
we'll talk a bit more about this a little bit later on as well. To the Irish Examiner this morning, and so nothing to shout about. That's Tyrone. Good winners, very gracious, letting one of the Monaghan players know exactly what's just happened because they, unaware obviously. Tyrone celebrate, but can final rescue what's been a poor football championship? We'll talk about the existential crisis that football is undergoing. I think a lot of football's issue is that hurling has been so good this year. If it was a Kilkenny tip and everybody else had been crapping the hurling, nobody would care. It'd be like, oh, what a great, interesting football championship. But I mean, obviously the best team's going to win, but the fact that the hurling championship has been so sensational has been no help to football and to the administrators. My lovely horse.
Great headline.
Top of the morning to you.
Top of the morning indeed.
So here we go. Ireland ended the European Championship with 4 medals, saving the best until last on an extraordinary final day. Rhys McClenaghan, a 19-year-old from Newton Ards, stunned Max Whitlock, the Olympic and world champion, with a gold medal performance on the pommel horse in Glasgow. So you can expect pommel horses to be popping up
everywhere.
Apparently he was training in his back garden in June because his coach got unmercifully sacked around that time. So he was on his own at a key part of the season, ramping up to the Europeans, and he obviously had a horse in his backyard and had to train himself for a while until they got a new coach. So it's a great story. He's 19 years old.
Look at good weather in June. Yeah. Wouldn't fancy doing it in a deluge.
Thomas Barr got bronze. The O'Donovan brothers got silver in the rowing, and Shane Ryan got bronze in the 50-metre backstroke as well. So European Championships went particularly well. Kieran McGean, shout out to Kieran McGean as well, finished 4th, and I think the 4x100
national record. They didn't qualify. They missed out by a fairly close margin on making the final. But yeah, another great experience for that kind of up-and-coming, promising 4x100 team.
The European Championships, having the European Championships on at the same time, so you have the gymnastics, the swimming, the cycling was in Glasgow. It was brilliant. It was
absolutely brilliant.
It was a really good idea, because normally European Championships, you're like, oh, who cares about this, really?
Yeah.
But then it's actually a proper TV event for 10 days with everything that you would expect from a major championships, and suddenly people care about it.
You want the Olympics feel. Like, you want to actually focus in on certain parts of the calendar, and it's like all these kind of minority sports, so to speak, are going to be overlapping with one another. It doesn't matter. It's going to be, as you say, a great television event. It's going to get so much coverage, and it's just the volume of it means that you're going to start taking notice of other things.
Yeah, and the coverage was brilliant.
Yeah,
like it has to be said, the coverage was absolutely brilliant.
Peter Collins deserves a raise of some description or something.
It is. Like, I mean, and actually, the panels, like, Jerry Kieran, for all what he says about GAA players, like, to be fair, the guy knows his stuff when it comes. He's picking runners out and he's saying, well, she had a toe injury 6 months ago and she missed lots of practice. Like, he is an encyclopedia on the stuff, And I have to say, they dovetail really well. And Ireland, like, I mean, they had a phenomenal, like, the race yesterday, poor old Ciara McGean was really, really unfortunate. Thought she had it. I thought she had bronze, and she just faded. The English girl just kicked. She found something at the end, because for all intents and purposes she looked out on her feet. But it was great. Really, really brilliant stuff.
And then finally from me for now is the Racing Post, big guns on target, impressive starts from Man City and Liverpool. Pretty impressive starts for everybody in the top six, with the exception obviously of Arsenal. And then Alpha Bravo, Alpha Centauri romped home in Deauville, odds on. So it's been an amazing year for Jessica Harrington and Alpha Centauri. Romped home in Deauville, and amazing year for Jessica Harrington, amazing year for that horse in particular. And Jessica Harrington's a bit of a genius, turns out.
Back page of the Herald this morning is Hearts' final fling. Tyrone must knuckle down for a big date with the Dubs, he says, and City will get even better, says Pep Guardiola on the back of their win yesterday against Arsenal. Back page of the Irish Daily Mirror is flying start. Klopp insists Reds will deliver after 4-0 Hammers thrashing, and City run riot without star names. And it's heart failure. We've let our fans down, so we had to win. Now nation needs us to bite at Blues. That was the thing actually yesterday. I think all the neutrals were cheering for Monaghan until you realise that Tyrone probably have a sliver of a chance of beating Dublin, and a better chance than Monaghan, you would suspect, after what happened last year to a certain extent.
Yeah.
You know, you're not buying that?
I don't know. I think it would have been much better for the rest of the country to have Monaghan in an All-Ireland football final go. Tiny county, well organised, good structures, proper league campaign. This is what it can happen if you actually organise yourselves properly. It's possible for you to reach an All-Ireland. Like,
people have still seen that.
Toronto have invested absolutely millions and millions and millions in the last decade and a half, and they're a footballing superpower. They've been horribly underachieving for the last decade by not reaching an All-Ireland final. So this is just the restoration of the natural order of things.
Back page of the Irish Daily Star is Sludden impact. Niall's goal is vital as Hart relishes decider.
Sludden impact. Stapo tweeted that. 0 likes, 0 retweets, and then it's on the back page.
It appears on a paper that he frequents with his byline. It's Carlo Kane's story there, I'm sure. And then you've got Farney Delt's Cruel Hand. That's another one, another good one as well. He didn't tweet that, Stapo, did he? Felt a cruel hand or anything. Speaking of like using the outside of your boot, Niall Sullivan with a couple of points there in the first half that were like, you wouldn't see that in the Dubs. It's far too non-mechanical. Back page of the Sun is Game of Thrones. Pep, winter is coming and we will get better. It's a terrifying roar from Pep Guardiola and a cry from the heart as Tyrone win on a 113 to 15 point scoreline.
Mayo in for Jim is the other story in the back there. What? Mayo in for Jim McGuinness.
Oh yeah, I just see that here. Gordon Manning. Jim McGuinness has emerged as a shock candidate to become the next Mayo manager should Stephen Rochford step aside. So it's believed that Rochford, so he's going to decide on his future in the next 10 days. The sounds we've been getting here is that he is going to stay on from the stuff Lee Keegan's been saying, from the sounds of that. But his deal runs out and runs until 2020, so it might be one more year for Rochford to try his hand. But the Sunsport understands that the board are keen to bring in former Donegal boss McGuinness. Members of the Mayo backroom team are to step away, as we've spoken about. And McGuinness obviously looking for a new job. He's kind of got a bit of free time at the moment. That would be amazing.
Yeah, it's hard. You know, you kind of think about it and say, right, is it a good fit? Like, I mean, McGuinness seems to be the type of guy who, yes, I think he would be able to work with Rochford, but at the same time, you know, you're bringing in a number one with a number one. You know, like, I mean, Donny Buckley and McEntee are, you know, they've been fellas who've always been understudies, I suppose. So it could be great for them.
I presume it's a replacement for Rochford, right?
I would probably, I would think so.
I'd say one more year and then they'll make a move for Jim. Jim could have a new role lined up by then, though, is the only thing. Now, just to round up then, the back page of The Guardian is Sterling Silva. Guardiola keen to keep England man as City spoil Emery's bow. And the front page of the Telegraph Sports section is Guardiola talking about Sterling as well. He's loved and must stay. Manager wants forward to sign new deal after goal scoring return for champions.
We're